Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's second Saturday. We're so excited to see everyone back and joining us. And if you're not watching live, we're excited to see you on YouTube with us as well. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started. Please stay on mute for the presentation. Towards the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A with our presenters where you can ask questions that may come to mind. Feel free to come off mute at that time. You can also type your questions into the chat during the presentation, so you do not forget those and we will address them during the Q&A. Reactions on Zoom are always welcome while our presenters are talking. Please drop your email in the chat to stay up to date on all things Detroit Chempreneurist, and we will also be sending out a quick survey after the event. Your responses to those surveys will help us improve on future events like this. This presentation is being recorded and we will be sharing it on our YouTube as previously mentioned. We also are offering closed captioning and live transcripts. At the bottom of your Zoom, you should see a CC. You can click on that and you will have those live transcripts available. All right, so now to get into some introductions. I am Cass Fry. I am a co-founder of Detroit Chempreneurist. I'm also a personal care chemistry instructor as well as board member. So I am a secretary and the treasurer of the organization at this time. Other members of our organization include Brittany Mitchell-Kelly. Pronouns are she, her. She is the entrepreneurship instructor, co-founder, and our board president. She's not able to join us today because she did just have her baby, and we are so excited and happy for her and her family. Also on our board, we have Vanessa Fry. Pronouns are she, they. They are Director of Equitable Relations and Fund Development. We have Lynn Roosevelt Wiggins, pronouns he, him, and he is the Director of Strategic Partnerships. And also joining us on the call today, my co-host, I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Katie Standiford. I'm the Director of Curriculum here at Detroit Chempreneurist. I'm so excited to join you for the second Saturday. And with that, we'll move on to our next slide, tell you guys a little bit about our programs. So our mission at Detroit Chempreneurist is that our programs offer students from all backgrounds an opportunity to be empowered in an inclusive, safe space and excel in STEAM experiences while collaborating about personal care chemistry and entrepreneurship. Our vision is to educate local youth in a holistic program to prepare and explore their passions while also diversifying and increasing the fields of science, technology, engineering, entrepreneurship, art, and mathematics. Our goal is to create opportunities for both rural and urban resident-owned small businesses to boost our local economy. So that's a little bit about us and our programs. I'll turn it back over to Cass to talk about personal care chemistry.
My favorite subject, chemistry, personal care chemistry. Always hear, what is that, Cass? I've never heard of it. Well, you have. In fact, I know I say this all the time. I'm like a broken record. We're talking about cosmetics. So all of those products that you use every day to keep yourself safe, clean, and healthy are what we learn about in the chemistry side of our program. So students have the opportunity to learn about these products in the industry, and then they're going to have some opportunities to create products and develop them further. We use the scientific method, so they're going to hypothesize. What do we think is going to happen? What are we going to do? We're going to ask those questions, and then we're going to experiment. We're going to go ahead and mix some ingredients together and see what happens. We're going to make observations during that time. And we're going to say, did this work? Did this not work? Do we not like the way it smells? Do we want to change the consistency? And all of those good things to draw conclusions about the things that we're doing and the outcomes of our experiments. Students also have the opportunity to conceptualize their own products. So in the entrepreneurship side, which Katie will talk about a little bit more, we go through design thinking and prototyping with our chemistry and cosmetic products. All right, so Katie, your turn to share the other half of the program.
Yeah, and to kind of expand on what Cass started us off on, right? We're working with our learners to, like she said, they said, my apologies, to create their own products and expand on their own ideas, not only in personal care chemistry, but they can bring other ideas to us as well, right? So we do a lot of prototyping, a lot of talking about how we need to create our ideas, how we bring them to market, how do we get people interested in them, right? All of the things from generating that business model to pitching to stakeholders and investors. So trying to get our learners involved from the beginning on how to build their own business and use their own ideas to generate their future. That's a little bit about entrepreneurship. With that, we're going to talk about our upcoming events. So our upcoming events we have coming up on the 17th. We have with the Black Family Development Initiative, we have a wellness and resource fair from 1 to 6 that we'll be participating in at Hillman Community Center in Detroit. We'll also on 12/10/22, we'll have another second Saturday, our December session, where we'll be doing some holiday STEAM crafts from 12 to 1:30. So join us here on Zoom or catch our recording for that. Should be a lot of fun. In December, we're also going to do the virtual reality chemistry program with VR Life Arcade in Pontiac. And we are planning for our Spring Fling Scholarship Competition. Time and date, we are still, or time and location, excuse me, we are still TBD, but we are planning for it on the 13th of May. So really excited to get more info out about that and have people join us for that competition. And finally, in the spring of 2023, we are going to have a hybrid program with For Her Cosmetics for 6th to 12th grade learners. So really excited to have people join us for those upcoming events.
I'm so excited. I love when we get to work with the community and work with the students. And so feel free to join us or share those events. Now we're going to go ahead and get into the main part of the event, our presenters. And so this month we are spotlighting animals in STEAM. At Detroit Kempreneurs, we want kids to be able to explore many different STEAM fields, including working with and caring for animals. We are excited to hear about the passion for animals our presenters bring today and how students can cultivate their passion too. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first presenter. All right, so let me, got to do the tech stuff and bring Jen on board with us. All right, Jen Gay, pronouns she, her, is an entrepreneur. Jen Gay was born and raised in the suburbs of Detroit. At the age of 12, she started volunteering at the Girl Scout camp. She rode her first horse at, which gave her the experience and opportunity to become a certified horseback riding instructor. Today, Jen is the owner of Hell Creek Equestrian Center, a lesson and boarding barn in Pinckney, Michigan, and the Terra Barn, a mentorship program for horse professionals. By providing a safe place and herd of horses for beginners, she is able to pave the way for future horsewomen by having volunteer and leadership opportunities and mentorships programs for those interested in getting started in the horse industry. She is a proud doTERRA wellness advocate and a lifetime member of the Girl Scouts and the Certified Horsemanship Association. When not focused on the horse industry, you can find her enjoying time outdoors with family and friends and her dogs. All right, Jen, I'm going to go hand it over to you to share a.
Thanks so much, Cass. Hi, everyone. Like Cass said, my name is Jen. I grew up outside of Detroit, and I am an entrepreneur. I have a few different ventures, as you can see. Like Cass said, I'm the co-founder of Hell Creek Equestrian Center. And that was truly a labor of love. I started off riding horses through Girl Scouts as a hobby, and through their volunteer programming and their leadership programming, I became a certified riding instructor. And then into adulthood, I continued working for the Girl Scouts part-time. And eventually I became their equestrian center director, which was awesome. After 10 years of working at their camp, I became the boss there. And 6 months later, they shut down the program. And that's when I got my first set of horses, and I started learning a little bit more about the horse industry outside of the camp. And I found a really big need because I learned that there isn't a lot of barns that have a set of horses that are ready for first-time riders, or even those people who haven't been around horses to learn from. And so I started my program from there and slowly grew it. And so here, 6 years later, I've got a fabulous team that helps run the program. And we do everything from lessons to boarding. We have a horse hotel, so people can go camping at the camp that we're at and bring their own horses, and we help care for them there. And so with all of that and all of the experience that I had over the years, I really was able to start teaching other people on what I was doing as well. And so my Terra Barn mentorship program kind of came into place. And so it's been a trial by error. As an entrepreneur, it's okay to fail, because failure is just learning what you did wrong and how to make it better. And so everything that I've done has helped grow me to be here. We are able to do things with the Terra Barn where I help teach kids and youth to come in, and they volunteer in my programs at our day camps. They learn how to assist in our programs. Olivia had started and never touched a horse at the age of 10, and she's now 16 and is one of my assistant instructors. And she just loves being at the barn with us. And then Aaliyah, she was another one who started with me at the Girl Scout camp. And when the camp closed down, she bought a horse and she tagged along with me, opening up a program and teaching and assisting. And now she is a certified instructor herself, and she is an independent instructor. And so I'm really excited to help her with those things. We've started venturing into a little bit of marketing worlds and things and helping people that way. So my life while my barn and my program is there in Michigan, I personally am now in Florida. And so I'm doing a lot of personal development and professional development while I'm here. I'm shadowing a coach for the Special Olympics, and I'm getting ready to start helping at Freedom Reigns, which is a veteran program in Orlando, Florida. And all of the things that I'm learning from those, I'm hoping to bring back to Michigan and help expand what we're doing there and giving more offerings to the youth there. Being from a child from the Detroit area, it's something important for me to give back to my community. So we have discounted programs or really good economical programs for youths to be able to participate. We bring out church groups, Girl Scout groups, Boy Scout groups, and things like that to have their first experience with horses and things. I absolutely love everything that it's brought me to be. As an entrepreneur, I've learned that you need a couple different facets of income. I don't keep all of my eggs in one basket. And that's why I have so many different ventures that I'm doing, is so that I can continue to do what's close to my heart and true to me, and still be able to make my living the way that I do. I also think that as youths, collaborating with adults is really important. And so being a lifetime member of the Girl Scouts, being a lifetime member of the Certified Horsemanship Association is a place for myself to grow as an entrepreneur, as a businesswoman. And it's a place that other youths can grow. So for kids that are involved with Detroit Chempreneurist, it's huge because you are learning yourselves. You're taking that first step into entrepreneurship, that you want to learn how to do these things. I am forever a student. I grow emotionally, professionally, and personally all the time. And that's kind of what I teach through the Terra Barn, is not only do we do mentorships with our people on their professional life, we look at like their health and their whole well-being. So having a good work-life balance is really important to have as an entrepreneur. And yeah, so it's a little bit about me and a little bit more about what I do. Yeah, and that's kind of what I have for you guys.
Thanks, Jen. That was so great. And I love what you said about being a lifelong learner. So important as an entrepreneur and just as a person, right? That we continue to learn and we continue to grow. throughout our career. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So next we have Dr. Emily Verstraat. I hope I said that correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It was close. It's for straight, but we'll take it.
I tried. Dr. Emily grew up in East China, Michigan, and she attended North Carolina State University, where she graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Animal Science. She then attended veterinary school in the Caribbean at Ross University School of Veterinary Medicine. She's been a small animal general practice doctor since 2010. And she's very passionate about preventative care, surgery, dentistry, and geriatric care. So thank you so much, Emily, for being here with us. And I'll let you take the floor.
Okay, froze. Oh, I'm back. Sorry. I'm out in East China land right by Canada, so my internet is kind of sketchy sometimes. Sorry about that, guys. But yes, so I grew up in East China, which is upriver in Michigan, on the St. Clair River, kind of a smaller town. Always had a thing for animals, wanted to help animals and make their lives better, which eventually then transferred into I wanted to help the human animal bond the most because, you know, all of us think we're going to get into veterinary medicine to never have to deal with people, which I can tell you is pretty fairly wrong for most of us that are in private practice. We are there to make sure that both the animals and the humans are coexisting well together. I did attend North Carolina State University, go Wolfpack, which was an excellent experience. And I would say if you're really thinking about getting into veterinary medicine or pretty much anything animal related, if you can get to an agricultural school, that's great. It's definitely not the only way to go. But it will expose you to several different things. I mean, the veterinary field is amazing, but the field of animals and science in general is huge. So while I was at North Carolina State, you know, I got to work a lot with pig producers, learning about large animal, learning about nutrition for all types of animals as well. And all of those avenues could take you down different directions and paths other than just a veterinarian in general. I will say I did like college quite a bit, so it did take me a little bit longer to get my bachelor's than most people, and that is okay. Everybody's path is a little bit different. But that being said, I did end up going to vet school in the Caribbean, which is a little bit of a different program than the US schools. Still graduated and was able to practice medicine in the States, but that was a whole other experience living on a third world country and an island, watching how they care for their animals versus how we care for our animals here. Definitely gave me an edge on how to meet everybody where they're at, because not everybody cares about their animals the same as the next person. So I think it's important to remember where everybody is and treat everybody as an individual. From there, I went into small animal practice. So small animal meaning cats and dogs. Sometimes I dabble with a guinea pig, but I try not to because they don't really like me. So they run their own game somewhere else. I love small animal medicine. I love working with people. I love helping them learn how to take better care of their animals. I love keeping their animals around for as long as they possibly can. Surgery is huge for me, dentistry, and geriatric care, which is very similar to hospice care in people. Everybody deserves to have a good ending and be comfortable. But I did want to share, even though I am mostly small animal, there are huge opportunities in veterinary medicine for anybody that wants to get in. And the thought of doing surgery and blood is just like shutting you right off. You don't have to do those things. Once you become a veterinarian, you can use your degree to work in public health fields. You can use your degree to, you know, build better nutritional diets for animals as well as people. You can help develop new state-of-the-art equipment. You can work in research. You can go exotic. You can get boarded to where all you ever do is talk about skin. All you ever do is eyes. There's so many different opportunities out there. If I had advice, though, I would say anybody who's thinking about starting as a veterinarian, try and get into your local veterinarian if you have one, or see if you can shadow there, go to, a humane society or work with a rescue to make sure that you can handle the ins and the outs. It's not all puppies and kittens, and there's a lot of pee and poo in this world. So you want to make sure you can handle that before you really get into it. And then from there, usually most colleges will have tons of externship programs that you can work with. I know I worked with some that was more wildlife rehabilitation, which was awesome, but it also showed me that that was not where I wanted to go. So try to experience as many different things as you can. You never know where your path's going to go. I'll be honest, when I first started, I dreamed of being a large animal veterinarian, and then I wanted to be mixed animal. And then I realized these arms are really short, so was not going to be happening with cows. So I moved right back over to dogs and cats. But it's an excellent field. It is one that I will say you're going to have to work really hard for a work-life balance to make sure that you give your best every day. But it's also one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. A lot of veterinary clinics will let you come in and shadow, so you just need to reach out to them. They'll even let you start shadowing as early as high school if that's something that you're interested in. Probably won't get to touch or do a whole lot of things, but you can get down and dirty and see if it's what you want to do. So, yep, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Thanks so much, Emily. That was so great. And I love hearing about all of the different things outside of what we usually think of, right? That can be used in veterinary with a veterinary degree. So thanks for sharing that with us and our learners. So great to have you with us. And next we have Courtney. So Courtney Prott Sanders, hopefully I'm not 0 for 2 on saying names right today. Yes. She was born with a passion to help homeless pets. She founded the nonprofit Paws for Life Rescue in 2007, an invited speaker at several state and national animal welfare conferences. She has 20 years experience in animal welfare, starting out at an open admission, high volume shelter in a county with breed specific discrimination laws. Courtney has served on numerous shelter improvement committees and has helped lead initiatives to end BSL in Michigan, to overturn BSL in local municipalities, and to enact animal welfare ordinances, regulations, and policies throughout the state. Courtney has volunteered as a member of the National Disaster Animal Response Team since 2005. She earned a Bachelor's of Arts in Communication in 1999 and a Master of Science in Public Relations in 2002. Courtney is a copy editor and communication specialist working in the automotive industry for 18 plus years. So thanks, Courtney, and a friend over there for joining us. I'll turn the show over to you.
Thank you. And I'll introduce my co-presenter. This is Bob. Don't know how long Bob will stick around for our talk today, but he came over. So want to explain a little bit about all of these different terms and organizations that Katie just mentioned. So talked a lot about BSL and breed discrimination laws, and some folks don't know what that is. So municipalities sometimes pass laws that say these certain breeds of dogs cannot live in our town or our city. And because the majority of people consider their dogs family members, it puts them in an impossible position. They either have to uproot their lives and find a way to move, or they have to get rid of their family member. And so I work with a team of other animal welfare advocates to work with communities, big and small, and talk to them about how this affects people and also how ineffective it is. We want communities to regulate dogs based on behavior, not on what they look like. And breed identification is a very unscientific process of looking at a dog and saying, that looks like a German Shepherd or a Rottweiler. And in those cases, those dogs can't live in those cities. So we're working really hard to get a state law passed that just prevents municipalities from being able to do that going forward. And there are 20 other states in our country that already have that law in the books. So that's what that part means. Paws for Life is a nonprofit all-breed dog and cat rescue. We're based out of Oakland County. We don't have a shelter. We use foster care homes. And the dogs and cats we rescue come from overflowing shelters where they've run out of time and space, or they have medical or behavior issues that the shelter doesn't have resources for. And so that's when we come in and we take them into our care. and we get them to adoptability and then find them a new family. I've been doing that most of my life, but started Paws for Life around 2007. And we don't have any paid staff. We're all volunteers, and most of us have full-time jobs. And then I wanted to talk about something that wasn't in my bio and should have been, Michigan Pet Alliance. So this is something of interest to everyone in the state of Michigan who cares about animals. We are the first trade association to represent pet owners and pet professionals. So you've heard of associations for plumbers, homeowners associations. So people with a common purpose coming together to work toward a common goal. And Michigan has never had one for pets, and now we do. And so anyone interested, whether you're a professional or you're a pet owner, you can join Michigan Pet Alliance. And together we work toward advocacy, change legislation in our state to benefit animals, and we work on education and helping other nonprofits in the animal welfare field do better, save more lives. So that's a little bit more of kind of about my background. You can go to the next slide. So I want to talk about the National Disaster Animal Response Team. It's called NDART for short. And we are a team of volunteers who are trained to do disaster recovery for animals after either natural disasters or man-made disasters. So way back in 2005, I was deployed to New Orleans after Hurricanes Katrina and Hurricane Rita had just come through. For those who weren't around for that, it was a massive hurricane that hit Louisiana and broke the levees so that the city flooded and people were trapped for many days. And there were no preparations made for animals in advance. One of the great things that actually came out of Hurricane Katrina was our country recognized the need to care for them during disasters. And so laws were put in place so that when people are evacuated, they can take their pets with them. But at this time, that wasn't in place and people left their pets behind because they didn't have anywhere else for them to go or didn't have any other options. So the dog you're looking at, we named her Bones because most of the animals we rescued did not have collars or tags or microchips, so we gave them a name. And she was in probably the worst body condition of the animals we pulled out. But as you can see in the lower right-hand corner, that's what she looked like just a month later, back to fully healthy. And in all cases, we did try to reunite the animals we rescued with their original owners. And in some cases that was possible, in some cases it wasn't. In Bones's case, it was. We were able to find her owners and get her back to them. They had relocated to Houston. And we learned her real name and her real story. And when her people evacuated, they put her in a closet on the top floor of their house with a 60-pound bag of dog food and thought they'd be back in a couple days. We found her 4 weeks after the hurricanes had come through. She probably didn't have a lot of time left, but she was incredibly grateful to see people and was a wonderful dog. She was a happy ending to that story. You can go to the next slide. So this just shows a little bit of the operation that happens when there's a disaster. The first thing we set up is an emergency shelter. Where are we going to take these animals when we're pulling them out of abandoned homes and floodwaters? So we used a 4-H facility in Gonzales, which was just about 30 minutes north of New Orleans. And semi-trucks, taxi cabs, people with minivans would just pull in loaded full of animals they had picked up. And we would pull them off these trucks one at a time. We would send them through triage, which was one of my roles, where we're evaluating who needs help right now and who can wait just a minute. So for example, I pulled out a golden retriever puppy who was the happiest dog on the planet, but she was lime green, glow in the dark green color. But she was eating, she was drinking, she was fine. She could wait a minute while we dealt with animals that were needed help immediately. So we would get them in line, get them water, and we would wait for a vet station to open up. And we would go through and do a nose to tail exam, looking for injuries, checking to make sure all vital organs are working. And then we would give them a spot, a stall in this case. We would set them up with a crate, and we would record them, take photos of them, put them in the database. The hurricane took out all the street signs and addresses. So when we would go into a facility, you would look for mail, anything to identify the address of the place. And so that information was recorded along with the animal, so that always in the hopes of reuniting at the end. You can go to the next slide. So just a little bit more operational in the upper left corner. That's actually myself and my sister. We had rescued a mama dog and then found this puppy. It came out of the same house, and we were literally physically moving the puppy from one side of the 4-H facility to the other to be back with its mom. In the lower left corner, that's a dog we rescued. We named her Grandma. She was the oldest of the dogs we pulled out, and she had a chemical burn on her back. That's from being in the waters, along with all the oils and chemicals that were leaching out of different things. But she got back to healthy. We were not able to find her original owners, but she did go up for adoption and find a new family. The dog in the middle is actually the same dog as the pictures on the right. So that picture is what she looked like when we pulled her out. She was just matted completely. We couldn't even tell if she was a boy or a girl. And then once we got her rescued and safe and got her groomed up, she looked like the dog on the right. Turns out her name was Mamie, M-A-M-I-E, and we were able to reunite her with her original owners as well. Go to the next slide. And this was a special case. This was a funny looking dog, out of proportion, like the head didn't match the body. We named him Bobblehead, and that turned into Bagel. And so the picture on the far right is my other sister when we first pulled Bobblehead out. And the picture in the middle is actually his owners. We were lucky enough to find them, and we drove from Michigan down to Houston 2 days before Christmas to deliver Bagel, whose real name is Charlie, back to his people. And they had been relocated to Houston. They lost everything in the flood, and they literally just had a blanket on the floor and the clothes that you see them wearing. And you've never seen a happier dog to see his people. Next slide. And so I'll just wrap up by kind of elaborating on what the other two speakers said. There are so many different ways to get involved with animals. And if it's like outside of veterinary care, you can become an educator. We have people who go into classrooms and school groups and talk to them about all kinds of things with animals. If you want to become a rescuer, you can work with companion animals like dogs and cats, and the small guys like guinea pigs. You could go into farm animals and, help the pigs and the cows and the horses. You can get into wildlife, where you're helping all of the wildlife and exotics that need help in some way or another. There's behavior training, there's animal cruelty investigations. There's just so many avenues to get involved with animals. So I just encourage you to give it a shot, ask questions, and just get involved.
Wow, Courtney, thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, it's truly inspiring and impactful. And I know, I volunteer with Paws for Life, and definitely it's so important to be there for those animals that, can't be there for themselves, and really relying on us. We breed them, and, we are kind of the reason that they're domesticated in here, and, all of those things about breed standards and, judging a dog by what they look like, and how that there's no science behind that, and really thinking about that and how important it is. I mean, I know I have a Pibble, and she is the most loving thing. I tell her she has scrambled eggs for brains. And she just wants love, and, also just highlighting that disaster relief. It's not something that we think about, that you can't, and a lot of times you can't take your animals when you have to pack up, and that they're left behind to defend for themselves. And, they don't know, and they're just looking for their owners. Where did my family go? And so how important that work is. So now I'm going to go ahead and bring back all of our presenters, and we have some time for a Q&A. So I'm going to, as always, check the chat. If anyone who's joining us live has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or to come off of mute and ask our presenters. And I, encourage Katie, if you have any questions too, our other co-host, feel free to come off of mute and ask those. And then if we don't have any questions from our viewers that drop into the chat, I do have a few that I've prepared for y'all. This is when I always wish I had Jeopardy music. All right. Give a few more seconds, and then of course while I'm asking questions and getting to know our presenters a little more, if you think of something, you are more than welcome to come off of mute and ask, or drop it in the chat. Alrighty, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask these questions of all three of you. So I'll ask the question and then I will choose the presenter to answer, and we'll kind of go, you know, and each of us will get a chance to kind of elaborate and share on each question. So first question, I want to know, what has been the most exciting thing about working with animals? And I know it can be hard to choose one thing, so if there's a few that you want to share, just personally, what is that? Is there something that stands out, or maybe something in the day-to-day that's just really exciting for you? We'll go to Courtney first, and you're off mute.
Sure. For me, it's the wins. It's when we're advocating for a change and it happens. And it's, you know, when we do rescue, we're saving one animal at a time, and it's important, especially for that animal. But when we do legislative stuff, education and advocacy, we're changing things at a larger level. We're changing the landscape for thousands of animals and all the animals that are going to come after them. So Hazel Park in Michigan had a pit bull ban, and I worked with them to overturn it, and they did. And that was one of the biggest wins I've had in my career, because it's really, really hard to change a law that's already on the books. It's a little easier to get a new one enacted, but it's really hard to change existing ones. And so that was a really big win. And St. Clair County, that was a huge, huge success. We worked for well over a year with the county administration to point out how much room for improvement there was. And they listened to us, and they worked with us, and they made the changes that we suggested, and their save rate skyrocketed, and they're saving so many more animals now, and they're euthanizing far fewer than they had to before. And so it's the wins, it's the hard fight, and then the success at the end.
Yeah, you know, and like Jen mentioned earlier, and when she was sharing, you're gonna fail, right? You know, you're gonna try all these things, you're gonna go to those legislators, you're gonna show up at those city meetings, and you know, there's gonna be some resistance, but those wins are coming. And when they do, they are what keep you going, and they keep you moving forward. So thank you so much for sharing that. Jen, you want to go next? What has been, or what is the most exciting thing for you with working with animals?
I mean, a lot of everyone loves working with animals, just to have that bond with them. In my capacity with my herd, I mean, I've been working with Finn and Jake for 12 years now. So to be able to see their growth, and even when I bring in some new horses and we're just trialing them out, whether they fit for our program or we move them on, I know that we've bettered that horse's life. I know that with the tools that I have, I'm teaching other people to be able to help other horses in the future as well. But yeah, the bond is huge that I have with my herd. I can be facing one way and someone can say, hey, this is happening, and I don't have to turn around, and I know what's going on because I know them in and out. And I've been able to share that. I mean, there's a lot that my horses helped me overcome, and it's great to be able to provide that to other people as well. But it's definitely, I would say, the most exciting thing is seeing the growth of my animals and the growth that they provide for other people too.
Yeah, and you know, it can be frustrating, right? Like at first you get this horse and you're like, why are you acting like this? But then, you know, all animals, if you give them time and you work with them, it's amazing to see how smart they are. I mean, I met Jen at the Girl Scout camp, as she stated, and worked with the herd there. And, you know, we would bring in horses, and just like you're talking about now, where you couldn't put a girl on them and you had to work with them, and then they became, you know, amazing school horses and really lead the way. And, you know, especially with larger animals, you see so many people afraid of them and afraid to work with them, and you know, that work is so important, and that exposure is so important to the community that you work with. So thank you for sharing. All right, Emily, I'm going to go to you. I don't want to say last but not least, because of course, all of you are amazing and equally as important to me. So what is the most exciting thing for you when working with animals?
I think the most exciting thing for me is when I uncover like what was wrong with an animal, or I am able to show an owner how to do something better. Whether that's like from the first puppy visit where they can't figure out why their puppy is doing the things that they're doing, to, the cat that comes in and is, urinating abnormally or something, to give them answers and to be able to advocate for those pets to get the best that they need. So for me, it's finding the answers that the owners need to move forward, and finding the answers that the pets need to be able to get what they need.
Yeah, and that can't be easy, since you can't say, all right, kitty, what are you feeling? Are you in pain?
I have to
Rate
say
your
that's probably
scale.
like my famous line of like, I can't ask your pet what's going on, but if I could, I would own an island by now. So
You,
yeah, it does make it a bit harder when you can't fully communicate, and it definitely works on your skills of asking the right questions from owners. So, and when I can get that right answer, that always feels great.
yeah, and I can't imagine that it's easy, because it's like people, you have to go through and you're like, well, let's try this. There's no way to say this is actually what's right. And I mean, I personally can relate to that. I mean, my 12-year-old dog, we've been going to the vet for the last since spring. I mean, almost all this year, trying to figure out what's wrong with her, and we just found that she has an adrenal gland tumor. And I mean, the work that took from the veterinarians to run all these tests and to analyze and figure it out, it's a lot. And I can imagine it can be challenging, but definitely really rewarding when you find that and you can help, save a life or improve a life, or quality of life, and anything like that. Thank you so much for sharing. Now I'm going to start with you.
No
So I'm going to flip it and keep you, as
All right, I'm
in the
ready.
hot seat. So what is your biggest challenge in working with animals?
Oh, that's a good one. So the biggest challenge that I feel I find, and probably most veterinarians in general, and I hope it doesn't come off sounding too harsh, it's hard to love a pet more than their owner does. So with that being said, I am not saying there are bad owners out there or anything like that, but everybody is at a different season in their life. Everybody has different expectations and different things that they can do. So I think as a veterinarian, sometimes the hardest thing is to see the pet that there might be a better option for, but you can't provide that for them. Unfortunately, we are not all made of money. We cannot all take in every single thing that comes through. And a lot of times, some of these chronic diseases are very, they're very expensive. They're very emotional. They take a lot of things out of there. So it's hard to know that you have the ability and the power to potentially fix or elongate, but that's not always what you're going to have happen. So I hope that wasn't too doom or gloom, but it's a real reality, and it's pretty tough on a lot of veterinarians.
Yeah, and I can imagine, especially with the financial thing. I mean, medical care for people is so expensive, and
Oh,
I mean
yeah.
us, and people get animals and think, oh, I just buy food and that's it. And it is so not that at all. And yeah, I
It is
mean,
not. It is
it's
not. And I think the other, what you brought up, good, like people care is hard, but we do have insurance, love or hate it as much as you would like. There is insurance for animals out there, and I cannot stress enough, and I am not plugging anybody. I do not get any kickbacks or anything like that. But having been in the field for 12 years, I will say getting your pet's insurance when they are puppies before anything is found wrong, so there's no pre-existing conditions, will make your life so much easier. And the one that I have found that has been truly amazing is Trupanion. Like that is one that when I see somebody coming in, their puppy has that, I know we're good. Like they don't have a cap out on things, which can be tough. I mean, when you start talking about dogs that need like, lung resections and chemotherapy and cancer, you're looking at like 10 to 15 thousands of dollars. that's out of the realm for most people, realistically. But if you do have an insurance that's going to help you cover 90% of that, that becomes a little bit more realistic. So yeah, animal medicine is a lot tougher than human medicine. Our hands are sometimes tied, but then other times, like, we don't have to deal with the red tape of, you know, as big of insurance companies as humans do. So it's a love-hate.
Yeah. And you know, I can imagine that that part of loving, you know, the animal more. And like you said, you know, you're not trying to judge people for the way that they treat animals. And you know, some people, they buy a dog and they put it in the backyard and that's the guard, or you know, they maybe use forceful techniques. And I can imagine that's hard as a vet to, you know, where's your place to say, hey, maybe your animal deserves that, where you know, you're really just there to give the care and the support and diagnose. And so I'm challenged just hearing your story, you know, and knowing as a dog
Yeah.
owner what it really is like. So
No, it definitely can be tough. And I mean, to clarify, we are, you know, we are required to report if we do think actual true abuse is happening. And I have no problems doing that. Like there's nothing that will stop me. But there is that line of, you're right, like, my dog was my baby before my baby. He slept in bed with me. Like, he was my little dude. Not everybody lets their dogs lick their face and sleep in their beds. And you have to respect that that's the level of that where they're at. You know, not everybody is willing to, you know, go the whole gambit. Their dog is just like a buddy versus like their actual baby. So it does take some time to feel out, like, what is this person's actual expectations of what do they feel? How bonded are they to this animal?
yeah.
You know, and then making the hard call. You have to be real careful sometimes of, you know, I have no problem asking if they'd like to relinquish a pet, if they'd like to turn it over. But that can come, you got to be real careful in how that comes across. You don't want it to sound judgmental or that you don't think that they're a good home for them. And it's not an easy decision. It would be like some of them giving up their babies, and I could never do that. So
Yeah, and people, you know, and I know you all probably have experienced this, people don't really understand animal behavior. You know, they just assume that, you know, your dog is going to sit or your dog is going to do this or not do that. And it's not something that's taught. I know for myself, you know, I've had my dog for 12 years, and the things that maybe I did when I first got her and was training her, I would never ever do those things again. Now, I mean, every time I tell my dog no, I feel guilty. I'm like, you're not supposed to say no to your dog. Like, you know, and thinking about force free and just rewarding the behaviors you want and ignoring the behaviors you don't want, and trying to understand what's really going on with that animal. I know I went to an ultrasound to have the ultrasound done on my dog, and the vet said to me a method of training that she used to get her dog to stop jumping. And I said, yeah, I only use force feed training, you know, and she's a doctor of medicine and in animals, but she doesn't understand animal behavior. And so, you know, that it's not common knowledge for those people that you're working with in treating their animals. So it can be really important, and you have a great opportunity to inform them and help them, you know, as a doctor in your position. And so thank you.
Yep,
So
I will
much.
say, I'm sure Courtney has plenty to say about animal behavior in general. I can speak on the veterinary half that it is not something that is viewed necessarily core in our curriculums, but it is something that we can educate ourselves on. You know, we talk about, you know, being a continually learning. There's definitely lots of things to learn out there with the fear free and everything there. But, and I'm sure Jen can say the same, because I know behavior in horses is just as important as it is in dogs, or cats, or any other animal that's out there. And it is something that is becoming more apparent and bigger, but I'm sure Courtney has plenty to say about working through that. And that's probably why she sees a lot of the animals she sees, sadly.
Absolutely.
Well, it's just a really interesting conversation, because you mentioned force free. And so fear free, force free is a movement across animal welfare to train not only our professionals, but their entire staff and clinics about how to meet an animal where it is. And it can be as simple as, you know, in a normal world before force free, fear free, you know, a vet might pick up a large dog and put it on a table. That is not normal for that dog. A 70-pound dog up on a table adds to their stress level. So it's as simple as the vet now gets down on the floor with the dog. Just that simple change makes a huge difference for the animal and their experience. And so I'm going to plug our conference for 2023. Force Free, Fear Free will be one of the keynote speakers to talk about this program, this concept, and about how we can incorporate it more and more and more into what we do. Because stress, just like with humans, also affects animals in the same way, from their literal biology and medical problems to their behavior. And so it's just such an important message, and I'm excited to hear people talking about it. And Emily, to your point too, we now get phone calls from veterinary clinics who say, I have these owners in here, they want me to euthanize their perfectly healthy cat or dog because of fill in the blank, right? 20 years ago, the vets just used to euthanize them, you know. Now they are taking a humane approach and saying, this is not a sick animal, this is not a suffering animal. I can't in good conscience do that. And so they find another route. So yeah, I just find it interesting. It shows the progress our field is making. It just shows the education. I just love it.
Yeah, and since I like where we're going with this, I want to involve Jen in this topic because, and this is something I struggle with, and I don't know, Jen, maybe you feel the same way or not, but when I learned like horse training and when I learned, riding, it can be like a fine line between putting pressure on an animal when you're asking them what to do versus taking a spur and just nailing it into their side until they bleed. So since I like the way this is going, I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on that with working with horses in that industry.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into the positive reinforcement with horses and ignoring the negatives and things like that. And I know there's all different methods with training our animals, but really horses are really good mirrors of that for us. So really what you put into it is what they're going to give back. For a flight animal, like you said, some people's training method might go a little bit more forceful with the spurs or are more forceful with their things, but sometimes that leads to horses that have more fear that's held with them, and they work out of fear, which sometimes ends up in some chaotic situations for people. So with that and talking about that, we found a lot of positives, and even teaching people with horses on how to train that positive reinforcement, because when people are a little too like, I'm being super positive, sometimes horses are like, okay, yeah, cool, you're super positive. And they like take that step back from you with your forcefulness of that positivity. So learning that line in reading animals is so important. And for us, and what we're talking about too, is it also teaches other people how to do those same interactions with people, learning those nonverbal communication and things. And I think that lacks in the general community outside of even animals.
Right. I mean, that natural horsemanship, if you will, where you have that bond with your animal and they trust and respect you. I mean, that goes across all breeds. And so thank you for, jumping in. I was really feeling the vibe, and I wanted to get the full picture from all the presenters, but I did ask a question, and we'll go back to that and get the feedback from the other two. And since I have you off mute, Jen, what is your biggest challenge working with animals?
I enjoy all of the things that we were talking about, like learning the animal, figuring out what works for them in our industry. You can't just walk up to a horse and meet him the first time and know this is going to be the perfect lesson horse. I mean, I went to see a horse and they said, hey, this guy has sat in the pasture for 6 years untouched, and they brought it in, groomed it, saddled it, rode it. And it enchanced him wonderful. So I did the next evaluation. He did great. I brought him home. About 3 weeks into the program, we discovered Chance does not like having multiple riders on him. You'd put on the third rider in the day for like a scout program. We probably have like 3 or 4 riders on a horse in a 4-hour period. Chance started running my instructors over. like bullying us over. You'd get the first one on, he'd be fabulous. You get the second one over, he'd be a little dancy. You get the third one on and he'd be like, I'm no more children on me right now. So we had to learn his personality. Some people in the world might be a little more forceful and say, okay, now we have to do X, Y, and Z and make this horse into this. And I said, you know what? This horse's personality said, hey, I'm not a teacher. And so we moved him on into another thing. But I would definitely say the biggest challenge would be other people's opinion. Everyone has one in the way that you do something. My training method doesn't always align with another person. And when you are working with other people are going to tell you things and they're going to tell you might do them wrong. And so for that, I would say that probably the biggest challenge with working with animals is having other people when they might not be necessarily positive in the way of hoping give you corrective or constructive criticism or even suggestions on how to do things. I personally come to the belief that there's always different ways to do things. There may be safer ways to do things. There may be friendlier ways to do things. But I don't think it's always like there's only one single way to do one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to your point, working with animals, when you're an animal lover, right? That's the dream. You love it, even when they're, I will not say my animals are the best by any means, but, their personalities are the reason I get up every day. And, if you are a person who maybe doesn't have that same view or opinion, on animals, it can be challenging when you're just like, let me live my life and they're not your animals. So don't worry about it. But also, making sure as an instructor and an educator, like you are, you are sharing that knowledge and that passion that's positive. And so thank you, so much for answering my question and being here with us today. And Courtney, we'll go to you for your biggest challenge working with animals.
My greatest challenge working with animals is people. And it's reaching them. It's that their lives are overwhelmed. Some of them come with, I already know everything. I had a dog when I was 5, got it. And so that's the challenge. It's reaching them. It is educating them without them being defensive about it. And it could be the smallest example, right? So someone taking their dog for the walk. Well, the walk is for the dog. It's about their time, their enrichment, sniffing things and experiencing something new and getting a little exercise. And you'll see people like pulling their dog along, and it's no longer, I guess, the dog's walk. It's now your walk. And just trying to tell people, listen, if it takes your dog 10 minutes to go 10 feet, so what? It's their walk. It's supposed to help them. And just explaining or educating just how good that is for them, that mental enrichment, that change of pace from their routine day. It's reaching people, it's getting through to them. And it's not necessarily their fault. It's that our lives are incredibly busy and we are bombarded with messages more so than ever, the more channels people have to reach us. So I think that's the challenging part for me. It's cutting through and really reaching them.
Yeah. And, to your point, I had a dog when I was 5, and then you take your dog home and it gets aroused by you and you bring it back 2 weeks later, and so educating and understanding dogs, what calms them down, what can you do? Well, let them smell, like you said, that's so enriching, and that tires them more out than sometimes than using playing fetch or something like that, physical activities. So people who are listening, you're the biggest problem. It's not the animals. Just kidding. Maybe not. All right. So my next question, and this is something that I ask all presenters, because I think it's really important. And I think it's something that's not talked about a lot, and that is self-care. So, we go through our lives and we're doing everything for these animals, and sometimes we're not thinking about ourselves and our needs. And so I want to know, and if you could share with us today, how do you practice self-care, and what does self-care look like for you, in order to prevent this burnout when working with animals? So we'll go, Courtney, since you're off mute, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'd say this would be my second biggest challenge. And it's the self-care, it's the burnout, it's the life, it's the balance. But it's also the failures. We don't succeed every time, and you can put everything you've got into turning a dog around or saving a cat, whether it's behavior or medical, and you don't always succeed. And it is really difficult not to internalize that and beat yourself up, and to find a balance, to remind yourself of your successes, of all the ones that you did save, because it is human nature to focus on the negative. Our brains, for some reason, remember every traumatic and horrible thing that's ever happened to us. It's sometimes more difficult to recall all the great and positive things. So we train our volunteers and teach people about consciously remembering, especially when you're in the depths or something bad has happened, remembering all the good that you've done and all the ones that you have saved. And if you threw in the towel now, all the ones that you're gonna save aren't gonna have that opportunity. And that you cannot do this 24/7. You have to be able to take a step back, find things that refuel your tank. For me, it's education and conferences. I go to a conference, I come out of there like a firework, like, let's go. We've got 10 million things to do, and we're gonna start them all right now. So yeah, finding out what recharges your batteries, what brings you back to that full capacity, and it's recognizing when that balance is out of whack. Because sometimes you'll get too far down the road, look back and be like, whoa, I'm way out of balance. So recognizing it as it's happening, and it's a really conscious effort. I remember a point in my career, I don't get paid for anything that I do, but
Same. Well, I don't get paid for most of the things.
exactly, right. I remember feeling guilty that I was going to post on social media that I was at the movies with my family. I was going to check in and we're going to see this movie and I'm so excited. And I suddenly felt so guilty. I didn't make the post because I thought people would be like, oh, dogs are dying and here you are out at the movies. That experience helped me be like, wait a minute, you're way out of whack. If you seriously feel anxiety and guilt, they're going to go to a 2-hour movie on a Sunday. So I think that would be my message is, if you are way down in the dumps, find a way to pull yourself out. There are people who specialize in compassion fatigue counseling. They understand the animal welfare issue and they get the psychological pieces of it. Go talk to them, talk to someone. Just find your outlet and ask for help when you need it.
Absolutely. And I think, as a nonprofit founder and as an entrepreneur, and Jen, I'm sure you can relate to this as well, we often feel like we're not doing enough, right? Like we as entrepreneurs will run 20 hours a day and give ourselves a hard time that I could have done this today, or why didn't I get this done? And so that's, so important to recognize is that we tend to feel guilty, because we don't go to a 9-to-5 job, or not some of us do and do things outside of it, and then leave that, go home and make dinner and watch TV and go to bed and then get up and do the same thing. Our lives are so different than that when you're supporting, an organization, or you have running your own business or anything like that. So, finding those outlets and whatever that is, and even if it's just somebody else inspiring you and igniting a passion in you to continue your work, that's amazing. And I definitely want to learn more about this conference. And so please share it with us, and we'll share it on our social media and with, the outreach in the community that we're within. And so, Jen, I'm going to go to you to tell us a little bit more about your self-care.
So I'll start with that as the professional in the horse world. My profession is I'm an instructor. So for me, I like to tell people, it's kind of a joke. There's two different hobbies in the horse world. There's owning horses and there's riding horses. So for me, some of my self-care, sometimes it does still involve me and my horses, but it involves me going on a trail ride with my girlfriends, or me and my boyfriend going for a ride and doing something. So taking time for myself, like really that's what it is. And so sometimes, everyone's like, Jen's at the barn 24/7. Okay, well, one of those days may have been a little bit of a selfish day, even though I was there. So I actually have this really cool sun hat, and it says "Do Not Disturb" across the top. And so like, the group knows when I'm there wearing that hat that Jen's not the boss today. Jen's is a horse owner with everybody else. So that's really important. And carving time out for my family. So I thoroughly enjoy time with my family. And I enjoy being outdoors doing things. So scheduling time to go hiking, checking out new state parks, things like that. That's stuff that fills my cup. And like Courtney said as well, continued development, education, read a book. I read at least, I try to say I read every day, probably every other day. I wish I could say I really do get an hour of reading every day, but my book sometimes doesn't see me. But that, even just that little bit of time for myself to be able to grow a little bit, whether I'm reading books that are about horses or it's my own mental growth. Like we said, there's a lot of like anxieties that sometimes comes, or depressions, and there's things like that. So my own mental health is a big thing that I work on, and that I find that is my own my self-care like that.
You know, and I think that this is a good point that you brought up, is when you work with animals, sometimes self-care involves animals, right? Like petting an animal, going on a trail ride, taking your dog for a walk and letting them only walk 10 feet to sniff. Just because you work with animals, and it doesn't mean that you exclude them from your self-care. I think that it's one of those things that's just a part of you. And I know for me, my dogs may stress me out. I can hear them barking right now, but part of my self-care is spending time with them, you know, and whether that's, I wouldn't consider training self-care. That's probably not the self-care, but you know, that's part of animal ownership. But just getting to relax on the couch, you know, or anything like that, it doesn't have to exclude the animal. And I appreciate that you shared that. I know, Emily, you are on the call with us and not on video, which is okay. If you are able to come off mute, I would love to get your answer to the question on how do you practice self-care?
Sure. I am so sorry. My internet is like losing its mind right
We
now.
all get it. The internet is one of the biggest struggles. Like we need it, but
Oh.
it doesn't work most of the time.
It is huge. So I agree with what everybody is saying. I think self-care is probably one of the hardest things that we can do. But it's also one of the most important, especially for burnout. I mean, I'm sure most people know, like, veterinary profession has a very high suicide rate. Like there is probably at least 1 to 2 people that I personally know, like they might not be my best friend or anything like that, but I have met them. I've had interactions with them. I can tell you like what their kids' names are, that I see that I've committed suicide at least monthly. So I think as veterinarians, that is something that's super hard for us to do. But for me, what I have found is I have built myself a really good support system. So when we do have those losses, or we didn't make that win, or I feel like I screwed up a diagnosis, or I did a surgery wrong, my support system includes both other veterinarians who can talk me off of that ledge, as well as close family and friends who can get me to talk about anything other than veterinary medicine at that moment. Family is a very big de-stressor for me. I am a newer mom to a 2.5-year-old, and we are pregnant again. So it's about to get all kinds of stressful up in here. But hanging out with my daughter and my other half, and like just decompressing and putting everything aside for a bit helps. And then honestly, the thing that gets me through it the most is I make sure that I get a massage at least once a month. So I am by myself with some magical fingers. Man, that sounded bad coming out right there. But I am by myself with somebody who can physically help me de-stress, and I make sure that I don't think during that entire time, which is a really hard thing and a really hard concept to come across. Of like, when my mind starts wandering while I'm getting that massage, I just bring it right back and say, nope, we're not going to think about stuff right now. So taking that time to actually just stop thinking is huge for me.
Yeah, and you know, I never really thought about that suicide rate. I mean, obviously that's in all industries, but I can imagine that's hard, and it's so important you bringing that up to make sure that whatever you need mentally, you get that whether that's your support system or that's talking to somebody with a non-biased opinion. there's so much negative stigma around mental health. And we, back in May, we took the opportunity to do a second Saturday on mental health awareness. And it's okay to go to therapy. It's okay to
Oh, yeah.
see a psychiatrist. It's okay. I can say that like everyone suffers from something at one time, whether it's an event that sets you off, or, you struggle with that your entire life, and you'll have your ups and downs, but get the help and get the support you need. And there is someone out there who loves you and cares for you and wants you here. And it can be hard to remember that. And so you kind of led me into the next question. I know that's kind of a weird transition from
No.
mental health, but who, if you, and this is for everyone, and I'm going to start with you, Emily.
Sure.
You talked about self-care, and your supporters, but who would you say is your biggest supporter in your work?
Oh, wow. That's actually a harder question for me to answer than I would have thought that it would be.
Yeah.
I
A
would,
couple people you can I
yeah,
will
yeah.
allow, since I am the host, I get to make the rules. If you
So
have a
yeah,
couple people,
I would have to think that my other half, James, is probably, he's my biggest supporter, and I have been very lucky to find somebody who understands what all goes into it, that I don't work a 9 to 5. I work a 9 till whenever I can get out. I remember there being times that I wouldn't even have gotten out of the clinic until like 11 o'clock and we closed at 6. And he was, there with food or whatever it is that I needed. He's also my cheerleader when I forget about it. Like I tend to depreciate in public situation, like I don't really brag about I'm a veterinarian, like, oh, I'm a doctor, like, no, but he's the one who will make sure that whoever we are with knows that I am a veterinarian and that I can do all of this stuff. So it's nice to have somebody who believes in you, even when sometimes you question yourself. And obviously my family has been super supportive through all of this. And, I have one veterinarian that we have pretty much started. We didn't go to school together. She went to Tuskegee and I went to Ross, but we have been together through thick and thin, started at the same company. And she is the one that, I mean, it could be 6 months between when we've talked, but if I need to talk, she can talk me right through. And she's been one of my biggest supporters and career changes that I've done, things that I've done differently. So I don't think it's really, I think most people don't have that one person, but you have multiple people that support you in different avenues of what you're doing. And, I have to say, I think each one of you, I give you credit because I'm sure each one of you deal with mental health as well. Like, the rescue side of it on both the horses and not, like, that's a lot to take in. You start to take in what all these animals are and if you failed them, but you might only change the world for one animal, but you did change the world for that one animal. And that's something that we don't hold on to. And hopefully everybody has an amazing support system.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. That's a great point. Even a small impact to change the world is changing the world, and sometimes it can be doom and gloom, and we don't realize that all of those small wins add up over time. And if you look at where you were 5 years ago or 10 years ago, there have been so many wins since then, and you've learned so much. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. I can say your family is amazing. Kim and Hen are awesome. So you are truly
Thank
lucky, for that support system. All right,
I
Courtney.
truly am. And thank you for, bringing this up as, asking about mental health and things like that. I think these are all very important aspects of every career out there because every career has their own issues. But I agree. I will say I can only speak on the veterinary half, but it has become less and less stigmatized to talk about being in therapy. I believe more and more workplaces are putting in, EAPs, giving people the resources that they need. And I think that it's just something that needs to continue to happen. I mean, if I had my way, everybody would have their own therapist, and every therapist would probably have 2 therapists because they're going to need that. But I mean, everybody needs that unbiased person to talk to you, that unbiased person who can help you see the things that you might not even see in yourself sometimes that need to change. But yeah, I think the stigma needs to go away. And if it starts with just 1 or 2 people, it starts with just 1 or 2 people.
Truly. And I agree completely. Courtney, I will go to you next, and then we'll round out with Jen.
You know, this is interesting. No one has ever asked me this, so therefore I've never ever put thought into it, because I think my answer is the road you avoid. I did not give any attention to balance in my life for many, many, many years. I was full steam ahead, and you can't maintain relationships doing that. You know, the 50th time your friends ask you to go out and do something, you tell them no because you have to go find a dog, or you've got to move a dog, or you've got to get a cat, or whatever it is, they stop asking. And I couldn't even really tell you that my family is my support system, because I'm quite sure if they had their magic wand, I wouldn't be in this field, because they see the stresses that it puts on me, the time restraints, the things I've missed out on because of my dedication to this. So although they obviously support me, they would probably wish a different path for me. So I think I pull a lot of my support from my colleagues in the industry, those that I look up to as mentors who I learn from. They may not even know that they're my mentors that I learn from. Yeah. And then my own animals and the routine I've set up for my self-care, that's where my support comes from. But I do not have a human to rely on or a go-to person. And that is because of my own neglect for many years. So I learned the hard way, don't do that. Consciously, as you walk through any path in any career, be very mindful of the time you're giving yourself outside of that career or outside of that topic, because it will play a role.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that's a good point. You know, in talking about this, your support system doesn't have to be one person. It looks different for everyone. You know, maybe you do have that one person that you rely on, but in your line of work, I mean, I can say from firsthand experience, you know, the volunteers at Pause for Life are amazing. And they've supported me in situations where I'm like, what do I do? And so it can be multiple people. It can be a staff. It can be people that you look up to and they don't realize that you're, you know, our mentor. We all have that person or those people in our life that maybe we don't talk to every day, but we're watching them and we're their fans and we're learning from them, and that's okay. And so I know that's Bob, right? Bob right there. He's your support system. He's been here the whole time, like true and true. So that's amazing. All right. Last but not least, of course, I know I've already said that, but again, reminding you all that you're all equally important and special to me. So Jen, who is your biggest supporter in your work?
So for my work and stuff like that, I would definitely say my biggest supporter is my team that I have at the barn. I mean, this move to Florida recently with the life changes that I've had, and some of those hiccups and failures of being an entrepreneur and things like that happened. And I was at a point where I was burned out, a lot like Courtney was saying. Like, I put so much of my life into building my barn that by connections and friendships, I stopped getting those, hey, let's go dinner, those type of things. And absolutely every single, probably the last 3 career changes, when I told my family I was doing it, my dad was like, is this really what we're doing? And I'm like, yeah, you're going to support me either way. And off I went running. So my own drive and things like that. But my biggest supporter in life would be Aaron, my significant other. I mean, everything that I do, he does support me, whether he knows that I'm crazily buying 10 horses and here I go down this venture. He's helped me at the barn. He helped me at home when I'm crying. He does those type of things. So having that relationship, because I've made it a priority to have that in part of my self-care, it's been a good part of my support system. But when it comes to truly the mission that I have and the drive on changing the horse world and helping other people, I see the support in my team. that I have at
Yeah.
the barn. They're there every day caring for the horses. They help us run the programs. Something breaks and we're all on a Zoom call figuring out what needs to happen to make it happen. So that I'm happy for that over the last 6 years or couple decades of me doing this, that I formed the team that I did. And then the professionals that I have been very helpful. So not knowing where my next step might be, and just I have the courage to ask for help.
Yeah. And then, that's so important, right? Knowing when to ask for help, or that it's okay to ask for help. A lot of us don't do that. Also, I don't know how your dad was like, is this what we're doing? Because you're like one of the most positive people I know, and you have this smile on your face, and I'm like, this is gonna work. We're gonna do it. Follow you, Jen. Reiterating on some of the things that were touched on by Courtney and that you brought back up with your staff. I mean, people that are not your blood become your family, and they become your support. And I know I've had friends for over a decade, and when people ask me who my family is, it's those people. Those are my support people. Those people are there for me. And when you have a similar passion like animals, you'll see that will grow and that builds. And there are other people out there who believe in you and want to make a difference with you. And so thank you for sharing that. And thank all of our presenters for listening to me ask them questions and make them think and give us more and more and more today. So now the Q&A portion is over, and we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's second Saturday. So thanks again, everyone, for answering all of my questions. And I'm going to go ahead and bring Katie back. I know it was me a long time. That was not on purpose. Katie is amazing. I just got lucky to have that slides. So, all right, Katie, I'm going to hand it over to you. I got to remove my own spotlight.
Thanks, Cass. And yeah, I just want to say, as a mental health professional, I just loved hearing what you guys all do to take care of yourselves, and as well as just that conversation. There's so much similarities, right, between our different backgrounds, and it just highlights that importance of coming to these conversations, even if it's not your expertise, right? Learning from each other. Just my little takeaway there. Can't help myself. But with that, we at Detroit Chempreneurist are always actively looking for participating classrooms, schools, and organizations to host workshops with us. We have dynamic programming to cater to your STEAM needs. So if you or someone you know would like more information, please shoot us an email at info@detroitchempreneurist.org. We'd love to talk with you about what opportunities we have to work together and grow together. Other ways you can help us out, we do have some research through focus groups and surveys that are available. We'd love your feedback. Connecting with us and the resources to help fund our efforts. Spread the word. We're out on social media. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. So follow us there to find out about more of these great events like these second Saturdays. And I see Cass just dropped in the chat our link tree as well. It has links to how to support us, how to donate, how to get in contact with us. So please feel free to reach out at any time. We'd love to work with you or talk about what opportunities we have to grow together. And with that, I'll go on to our resources. So every second Saturday, we like to provide some resources around our topic. So what we have today, we have the USDA, which is the United States Department of Agriculture. They provide leadership on food, agriculture, natural resources, rural development, nutrition, and related issues based on public policy, the best available science, and effective management. They have a vision to provide economic opportunities through innovation, helping rural Americans to thrive, to promote agricultural production that better nourishes Americans while also helping feed others through the world, and to preserve our nation's natural resources through conservation, restored forests, improved watersheds, and healthy private working lands. USDA Rural also offers a multimedia guide to help rural entrepreneurs in collaboration with their robust network of federal partners. The guide provides resources both for startups and already established rural businesses. They offer more than 40 loan, grant, and technical assistance programs to help improve the economy and quality of life for rural Americans. Americans. Many of these programs can also support community-based entrepreneurial, I can't talk today, sorry guys, planning and growth. They partner closely with community leaders and developers, local and state and tribal governments, cooperatives, nonprofits, private organizations, and a nationwide network of participating lender skills lending. I'm so sorry, you guys. Cass was talking so much better than me. That's why we had them going. Lenders skills at building local economies. Whew. All right. Well, USDA is fantastic. Check them out. We also have our Michigan Community Resources, and they support nonprofits and grassroots organizations with capacity building services, tailored cohort experiences, and legal guidance. They use that lens of racial and social equity. They seek to build power within the nonprofit sector by shifting norms, practices, and attitudes, leading to systems transformation for our sector and our world. MCR advances the missions of Michigan nonprofits that serve low-income individuals and communities through pro bono and low-cost legal and professional services, organizational development, and trusted guidance. They envision strong Michigan communities built on strong organizations, strong leaders, and strong nonprofit work. So we just have two more for you here. We want to highlight as well the Michigan State Department of Animal Science. They offer undergraduate and graduate programs for people interested in getting into this field. Agriculture is Michigan's second largest industry, with an annual state income from diversified animal production in excess of 1.2 billion. Animal science majors explore advances in animal feeding, breeding, reproduction, and management techniques, as well as the health and welfare of animals. Students complete a set of core courses in breeding and genetics, nutrition, physiology, and management. Students pursuing an animal science degree choose one of the following concentrations. They can choose animal industry, animal biology, and pre-veterinary, companion and exotic animal biology, or production animal scholars. So a lot of interesting, like Emily was talking about, different avenues to get involved in this field. And then I've got two more now. Michigan State College of Veterinary Services. So the veterinary school, veterinary science courses have been taught at MSU since the institution's founding in 1855. Today, the college includes 4 biomedical science departments: microbiology and molecular genetics, pathobiology and diagnostic investigation, pharmacology and toxology, and physiology. They have 2 clinical departments as well: large animal clinical sciences and small animal clinical sciences. 2 service units: the Veterinary Medical Center and the Veterinary Diagnostic Laboratory, and several research centers as well. Michigan State has a long-standing commitment to equal opportunities, affirmative action, and multiculturalism, which is really important. The College of Veterinary Medicine has attained national recognition for its leadership in programs for the encouragement of underrepresented groups at the pre-professional, professional, and advanced studies levels, as well as for increased diversity in its faculty. The college also supports key animal health programs conducted by both the Michigan Department of Agriculture and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And one last one to highlight for you guys, we have the Friends of Detroit Animal Care and Control. They're committed to saving animals' lives, ensuring equal access to companion animals for those of all socioeconomic levels, and raising the level of care for animals living in the city of Detroit. They work hand in hand with the Detroit Animal Care and Control to help the homeless animals of DACC and proactively keep animals out of our shelters in the first place. Friends of Detroit Animal Care and Control exists to support Detroit Animal Care and Control in the areas of volunteer management, donation solicitation and acceptance, and live release, which includes shelter intervention. Friends of DACC is a completely force-free organization. They believe in science-based training methods that are not harmful to a dog's mental or physical state. They believe all dogs are individuals and are against breed-specific legislation. If you're interested in learning more about that group, volunteering with them or donating, they do have a website. It's friendsofdacc.org. So those are some resources if you're interested in learning more. And with that, I'll turn it back to Cass to finish us out.
Yeah, thank you so much, Katie. And, those are just a few of the resources in the chat. We've had some of our presenters drop a few more resources, so we will be sharing those on our social media, on our link tree. Check those out. And if you are interested in more information, feel free to email us at info@detroitchempreneurs.org, and we'll make sure you get more information on those resources. So just a couple of things to round us out. Again, this presentation is being recorded, and it will be uploaded to our YouTube for future viewing and use. So feel free to follow us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to get up-to-date notifications when the new videos come out, and make sure you like those videos as well and share them. Of course, we want to make sure that the people who need this information and this information will impact reaches them. And even, sharing with your friends, your network, your family. You never know who may need this information. And so we really rely on your support to help us get this out there to the community. And finally, before we close out today, we do have merch available. So we are partnered with Closed Talk. They are a B Corp organization. You can head to closedtalk.com and find us there with hundreds of other nonprofits that they support. We have over 20 different items, so you can get shirts, leggings, sweatshirts, hats, polos. So get some of our merch and rep us around, because I've personally, when I've been wearing it, people are like, what's Detroit Chempreneurs? And then it gives me the in to talk their ear off for 45 minutes. So I highly recommend that you do that as well, because we've got a lot of cool things going on, and a lot of people, don't realize that these opportunities are out there for the students around them. And so finally, to close out today, I want to thank each of our presenters, Courtney, Jen, and Emily. You were amazing. Your stories are truly amazing. Your journeys are amazing. And I know personally, I've been inspired today, and just really appreciate you sharing with us and joining us today for this call. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's second Saturday. We'll see everyone back in a month for December 2nd Saturday, where we'll be doing some holiday STEAM crafts. So with that being said, thanks everyone. Bye now.